Okay, then let's start. For today, we have one topic on our agenda. Tim Usner will give us an update how we reconcile shoots in Gardener in the maintenance time window. Then I will stop sharing and hand over to Tim.
Okay, thank you. Just let me share my screen. So can you see my screen? Just confirmation. All right. So yeah, the one topic I wanted to talk about with you is a change that we'll have in the next Gardener release, which is going to happen quite soon. And yeah, the change is mainly about that we can limit the reconciliation of shoot clusters in their maintenance time window. So what does it mean? So I would say the heart of Gardener is the reconciliation flow of shoot clusters, where we create all the different things that are required for our clusters, like the infrastructure, we deploy the API manifests, the control plane in general, and so on. And since we operate a quite large Gardener infrastructure at SAP, or an environment with many shoot clusters, we noticed quite a few things the last time, and this is what is the change about. So maybe let me jump to the Gardener GitHub page so I can navigate you to the example. So we have that component configuration for the Gardener controller manager. And there's a new setting, reconcile in maintenance only. And if you enable that, then the shoots are only get reconciled in their maintenance time window, as I said. And the motivation behind this is mainly because we noticed that, for example, when we upgrade Gardener, all the shoots are enqueued for reconciliation. And let's say, for example, you have due to that update, you have any change in the etcd manifest. The consequence of this is that every etcd pod gets deleted and newly created for every shoot cluster, which also implies that certain volumes must be deattached and attached. And of course, you can run into some rate limits on the cloud providers, which durates quite a long time, depending on the numbers of shoots you have. So the goal of this reconcile and maintenance only is basically that you can gradually reconcile the shoots to roll out the changes to the shoots, just to avoid to run into some rate limits, as I said. And also another motivation is basically that you can have shooted seed clusters. So your seed cluster is nothing more than a shoot cluster, and by having different maintenance time windows between the seed and the shoot cluster, you can separate their reconciliation from each other, so that you can basically bring in a certain stability into your whole infrastructure, in your whole Gardener environment, to avoid some service disruption of your shoot clusters and also your seed clusters. So that is mainly the motivation behind it, why we can do it. So of course, it's only an option you can turn on. So if you haven't configured it or set it to false, then of course the behavior is just like it is. Another point I wanted to mention, of course, when you create a new shoot or when you change any setting in the shoot manifest, then the shoot gets reconciled immediately. So you don't have to wait till the maintenance time window of the shoot. For example, you want to create a new one, then it's created immediately, not in the maintenance time window. All right, so that's basically the main setting from the Gardener perspective, and something that is, I would say, quite interesting from an operational perspective, as well as for development for the Gardener extensions, is how Gardener does that in the background. So as you know, we have these Gardner extensions controllers for quite a long time, or not quite a long time, but since a few weeks. And yeah, so Gardner creates resources in the seed clusters, and the Gardner extensions basically take care about their reconciliation, so that we have a distributed system here in those terms. So of course, when you say only reconcile that shoot in the maintenance time window, and the infrastructure controller, the infrastructure extension controller in the seed would immediately reconcile the infrastructure resource, then that wouldn't make any sense. So you need to have some kind of navigation between the Gardner and the Gardner extension controllers. And I wanted to just demonstrate you how that basically works. Okay, so I hope that my console is large enough for you. Okay, so let's start, for example, for local development, let's start the certificate controller. Sorry. There it is. All right, so the controller started. And I want you to have a look at the console basically, because it tells you when the reconciliation of a resource starts as well. So I have a certificate resource example in this folder. It's the 30 extension. And it's quite a simple object. So it's just an extension kind for the certificate service, nothing more. We are going to create this. Okay, and the reconciliation starts immediately after we created it newly, because the extension resource didn't have any status indicator. That means for the controller, it's a completely new object. Please reconcile immediately. And as you see, we successfully reconciled the extension resource. All right, let's have a look at what happens if we are going to change something in the extension spec. So here's the spec. We can add the provider config. Just arbitrary field. Save it. And there's no new reconciliation happening. And that's because we wanted to block it until Gardner really tells the extension controller to really reconcile now. And this happens by an annotation that is set on the extension. So let's annotate the extension. And the annotation is called gardener.cloud/operation reconcile. And the reconciliation starts again via that annotation. Also interesting maybe is, let's have a look at the extension again. So the extension controller basically removed the annotation, the operation annotation in the beginning, and subsequently maintained the status that everything succeeded, so that Gardner knows again that the reconciliation happened successfully, and Gardner can continue with its flow to create a shoot or to reconcile the shoot cluster. And finally, when you want to delete the extension resource, it also happens immediately, so no need to annotate it right before. It's the controller reacts upon the deletion and deletes everything that is required. Okay, that's basically the main concept. So this applies to all extension controllers, of course, so not only for the certificate service controller, also for the infrastructure, control plane, worker, operating system configuration. Yeah, so that's the idea. And in case you have questions, you're very welcome to ask them. If not, thanks for your attention. Yeah.
Oh yes, this is Pablo.
Hi, Pablo.
You mentioned that the all the extensions controller has to implement this logic of checking the label.
Mm-hmm.
Or is that done in any common library that is used for all control?
No, so every extension controller has to do it by itself. So it has to check when there's an update event. It basically has to check whether that annotation is set or not.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, then if there are no more questions, we are done for today with the community meeting. Thank you very much, Tim, for presenting it, and thank you for attending.
Thank
See
you.
you
Bye.
next week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.